Hi, today I want to share a lesson and a book with you that has some important lessons for us. I like to call this lesson, You Get What You Expect. Now, the book I'm going to share, I'm going to tell you the name of it in a minute, but when you hear the name, you might think this is a book that's really for young children. But what I have found is that a lot of really good literature has hidden lessons in it that are really there for mature readers and for older students. But you have to be a mature listener to hear the lesson in it. Otherwise, you just think it's a book for young children. Now, the book we're going to share today is called Harold and the Purple Crayon. You may have read that yourself before. Okay, so I want you to listen very carefully to see if you can hear what the hidden lesson is or the message that's inside this book. Harold and the Purple Crayon. One evening, after thinking it over for some time, Harold decided to go for a walk in the moonlight. There wasn't any moon, and Harold needed a moon for a walk in the moonlight. And he needed something to walk on. He made a long straight path so he wouldn't get lost, and he set off on his walk, taking his big purple crayon with him. But he didn't seem to be getting anywhere on the long straight path, so he left the path for a shortcut across a field, and the moon went with him. The shortcut led right to where Harold thought a forest ought to be. He didn't want to get lost in the woods, so he made a very small forest with just one tree in it. It turned out to be an apple tree. The apples would be very tasty, Harold thought, when they got red. So he put a frightening dragon under the tree to guard the apples. It was a terribly frightening dragon. It even frightened Harold. He backed away. His hand holding the purple crayon began to shake. Suddenly, he realized what was happening. By then, Harold was over his head in an ocean. He came up thinking fast, and in no time he was climbing aboard a trim little boat. He quickly set sail, and the moon sailed along with him. After he had sailed long enough, Harold made land without much trouble. He stepped ashore on the beach, wondering where he was. The sandy beach reminded Harold of picnics, and the thought of picnics made him hungry, so he laid out a nice, simple picnic lunch. There was nothing but pie, but there were all 9 kinds of pie that Harold liked best. When Harold finished his picnic, there was quite a lot left. He hated to see so much delicious pie go to waste. So Harold left a very hungry moose and a deserving porcupine to finish it up. And off he went looking for a hill to climb so he could see where he was. Harold knew that the higher up he went, the farther he could see, so he decided to make the hill into a mountain. If he went high enough, he thought, he could see the window of his bedroom. He was tired and he felt he ought to be getting to bed. He hoped he could see his bedroom window from the top of the mountain. But as he looked down over the other side, he slipped, and there wasn't any other side of the mountain. He was falling into thin air. But luckily, he kept his wits and his purple crayon. He made a balloon, and he grabbed onto it. And he made a basket under the balloon, big enough to stand in. He had a fine view from the balloon, but he couldn't see his window. He couldn't even see a house. So he made a house with windows, and he landed the balloon on the grass in the front yard. None of his windows was his window. He tried to think where his window ought to be. He made some more windows. He made a big building full of windows. He made lots of buildings full of windows. He made a whole city full of windows. But none of the windows was his window. He couldn't think where it might be. He decided to ask a policeman. The policeman pointed the way Harold was going anyway, but Harold thanked him. And he walked along with the moon, wishing he was in his room and in his bed. Then suddenly, Harold remembered. He remembered where his bedroom window was when there was a moon. It was always right around the moon. And then Harold made his bed. He got in it and he drew up the covers. The purple crayon dropped on the floor and Harold dropped off to sleep. All right, a really fun adventure, wasn't it? Well, something else I've noticed about good literature is that authors often choose words very carefully in their stories. Sometimes it's because they choose words that are symbols, and so there's hidden meaning in the words because they symbolize something. And other times, authors choose words simply because it's a little play on words. It means one thing, but it could also mean something else. And I heard a lot of play on words in Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson. Did you hear any play on words? For example, when he drew the purple apple tree, he said these apples will be tasty when they turn red. Well, are they ever going to turn red? No, they're purple apples. And then he said he was in the boat and he said he made land without much trouble. Well, sometimes made land means you make it to land when you're in a boat. But in this case, he actually made the land by drawing it with the purple crayon. Isn't that correct? And then when he finally made it to his bedroom, it said he made his bed. Now, when we say we make our bed, that means we pull up the covers and we tuck everything in. But in this case, he actually made the bed by drawing it with the purple crayon. And then the next thing it says, he got in bed and drew up the covers. And usually that means we're pulling up the covers. But in this case, he literally drew the covers, didn't he? So there were lots of neat play on words. You might read the book again If you can find it in your library or you've got it at home, read it and look for those little play on words. It makes it fun. But I'm wondering if anybody heard the lesson that we can learn from Harold and the Purple Crayon. There's some little clues. One thing is, we noticed that anytime Harold needed something or got in a little bit of trouble, how did he solve it? He just drew what he needed next, didn't he, with his purple crayon? When he was hungry, he drew pies. When he was sinking in the water, he drew a boat. When he was falling off the mountain, he drew a balloon. Do you see the lesson? What he drew came to be. What he needed, he just drew it for himself. And so the same is true for us a lot in life. We draw our hopes and dreams and goals by thinking about what we want to happen, what we want to accomplish or achieve. And when we do that, we're setting ourselves up for it to actually come true. Now, there's a big adult phrase for that, and it's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. You may have heard of someone who is a prophet, somebody who makes a prophecy. Sometimes they talk about prophets in the Bible, Old Testament, where somebody hundreds of years ago said, this is what's going to happen, and it came true. Sometimes you might hear about a fortune teller or someone who makes a prophecy about what might happen in the future. So a self-fulfilling prophecy is when we say something and then it actually comes about or comes true. When we say it ourselves and then it comes true in our own life, it's called a self-fulfilling prophecy because we help to make it come true. When we speak our expectations, they often come true. Now think about an example. Let's say you were going to be in a drama or a play at school. If you, right before you went on stage, if you got frightened and said, oh, I sure hope I don't forget my lines. I sure hope I don't get so nervous that I forget what to say. Do you know what is likely to happen? You've told your brain to be afraid. And so your brain makes it come true, and then you're more likely to forget your lines. Instead, if you say to yourself, you know what, I have worked hard on learning my lines. I've attended every practice for the drama or the play, and I am confident in my ability to remember because I've worked hard. Then your brain is confident and it's more likely to remember everything that you've practiced and studied. And so we want to learn how to make self-fulfilling prophecies like Harold did in the book. Whatever you draw comes to be. Whatever you expect, you get. Now, what we're going to do, what I'm going to suggest you do, I bet everybody probably has a piece of blank paper at home. It could be a piece of manila paper, it could be a piece of notebook paper, it could be a piece of typing paper or construction paper. But find a blank sheet of paper, and then I hope that everybody has a set of crayons at home and you can pull out the purple crayon, only the purple, because we're going to do what Harold did in the book. So once you get your paper and your crayon, I want you to think about what you want your life to be like. Maybe what you want to accomplish in the next 5 years or the next 2 years in your life at school. Do you want to be a football player and play school and sports at school? Do you want to be a cheerleader? Do you want to get on the all-A honor roll? Do you want to win some reading awards? What do you want to accomplish at school? Or maybe you even think farther out than that. Maybe you think, what career do I want to have in life? What do I want to accomplish in life? What do I want to learn about or become or have as a job in my adult life? What do I want my life to look like when I'm an adult? And then I want you to draw a picture of that with only a purple crayon. Draw everything that you want to accomplish in that period of time and make your picture about your future. And then it would be fun to hide this away, maybe put it in the bottom of your sock drawer or in a scrapbook or somewhere, so that many years later, when you get in high school or college or whatever, you and your parents can pull this picture out and see if your dreams and your goals have come true. So this was a fun book, a really neat lesson, and I hope you have fun with the activity. Have a great day.